What is up? Good morning. Just hit 1,000 miles on the 2020 Harley Davidson Lowrider S, and it's time to take it in for its first 1,000 mile service. So I'm gonna take you guys on a ride with me. We'll probably do some lane splitting, and later on I also wanted to give you a review of the first 1,000 miles. You know, what I like about the bike so far, if there's any dislikes, and yeah, so let's roll out to Huntington Beach Harley Davidson. See you guys later. Peace. What is up, guys? Welcome to another episode of Try with Tim, and on this episode I'm going to give you a 1,000 mile review of the 2020 Lowrider S. So I recently had the Lowrider S serviced at Huntington Beach Harley Davidson for the 1,000 mile service, and since then I've actually ridden about 500 more miles. I just haven't gotten to making this video. So due to the holidays and the new year, I've just been slacking off, but you know, it's 2020 now, so let's get right into it. So I've actually put about 1,500 miles on the motorcycle, which isn't too much. I feel like to really get to know a motorcycle, you have to put on about, you know, at least 5,000 to 10,000 miles, take it on several road trips and, you know, handle it in different conditions. But this will just be a kind of overall review of what I think so far. I won't get into like too many technical things, just, you know, the feel of the bike. And I want to do this review in comparison to my old motorcycle, which is the 2017 Sportster 48, which you might see in my older videos. But when I originally got the Sportster 48, I didn't think I would be commuting on it every single day. The idea was just to, you know, take it out on weekend rides or, you know, little day trips, run my errands on it just for fun. I was like, you know, I'm not going to commute every day on this. But, you know, since I live in SoCal and there's a lot of traffic and I commute to Los Angeles, eventually I just started, you know, basically riding the bike every single day, lane splitting, and, you know, it was great. I think the Sportster is actually a really good motorcycle, and if you wanted to, you can ride it forever. And I really was not planning on trading it in, but, you know, I made the mistake of going into Harley Davidson and test riding the Lowrider and other softail models. I think I test rode the Street Bob as well as the Fat Bob, you know. All of them were great, but when I hopped on the Lowrider S, it just felt really nice, and I knew that that was a bike I had to get. So that's that story. Yeah, since I basically went from, you know, just riding on the weekends to commuting every day, I felt like I needed a motorcycle that could basically handle that type of daily riding. So I'm going to cover a few categories to compare the Lowrider S and my old Sportster. That's going to be power, handling, comfort, aesthetics, and overall fun. So let's talk about power. Most of you know, if you're into motorcycles, that the Sportster 48 is a 1200cc motor. 2020 Lowrider S comes in a 114 cubic inch motor and has almost 1900 cc's. So both the motorcycles have a lot of torque, and I never really had issues with the Sportster 48, like passing up cars or things like that. I was always able to, you know, drop it into gear and just pass up cars. But the top speed felt limited. Like the Sportster 48 wanted to cruise around 65 to 75 is where I felt the bike was most comfortable. And you know, I didn't mod it out. I didn't add any aftermarket exhaust or things like that. I just really just wanted to keep the bike stock. It's kind of like what I prefer. You know, I like the stock sound. I don't like my motorcycle too loud. I don't want to bother my neighbors, and I just kind of like riding quiet. And the Lowrider S definitely feels a lot more powerful. It has that same torquey feeling, but in every single gear. I feel like no matter what gear you're in, like you have that passing power, which is awesome, especially on the California highways when, you know, people are hitting 80 or are faster. You have no problem just getting ahead of traffic and, you know, and going. So that's one of my favorite parts of the Lowrider S, is the extra power that you get that allows you to pass up cars on the highways. Compared to the Sportster, where, you know, you've probably heard this, but the Sportster is supposed to be better for just, you know, hopping around town, cruising through the city, which it does well in. And I don't want to say that the Sportster, you know, doesn't perform well on the freeway, because, you know, I rode 20,000 miles on the Sportster, and I did commuting almost every day on that bike. So, you know, it gets the job done. And if you can't get a lowrider, you can't get a new Softail, and you have a Sportster right now, just keep that thing, because it does perform well, and it can be a bike that you keep forever. But just getting back to the lowrider, it definitely just has a lot of power, and I don't even think I've really ripped it as much as I could, because I've just been kind of getting used to the bike. I don't want to overdo it, and I really want to take my time and getting a feel for the bike. That's really all I have on power at the moment. You know, I'm not doing any wheelies on there or anything, but on the highways, it feels really nice. That extra 6th gear really comes in handy. The Sportster had 5 gears, and I was basically always in that 5th gear on the freeway. I'm maxing out the RPMs. On the Lowrider S, I feel like I can, you know, either be in 4th or 5th gear. Like, I rarely have to use the 6th gear, but if I am, like, you know, you're probably going 90 to 100 miles per hour or more. And the thing about the Lowrider S, it seems like it wants to like stay at 80 or 90. It feels comfortable at those speeds. So I constantly have to like watch myself to make sure I'm not speeding too much, because the bike just feels so smooth that you don't even know you're going fast. So that brings me into the next category, handling. Handling is a big one for me, and that's why when I saw the specs on the Lowrider with the upgraded suspension, the inverted forks, and the monoshock suspension, it got me really intrigued. Out here in California, the freeways are constantly being worked on, so there's like potholes and imperfections all the time in the road. I've gotten nails in my tires a few times on my Sportster, and so I really wanted a motorcycle that was going to handle those potholes well and handle the road well, because on the Sportster you feel everything on the road, and it's actually what kind of makes the Sportster a fun bike to ride. Is it just feels so raw, you know, like it's just a fun bike because it just feels crazy, like everything's bumpy on there, but it's like super fun to ride. But after commuting every single day, like you want something smooth. You don't want to, you kind of just want to kick back a little bit, you know, you don't want to be hitting these bumps every so often and hitting that pothole that sends a shock up your spine. So that's another thing I was looking for, just something with a little better suspension, and you know, those inverted forks and the monoshock on the Lowrider really did it for me. So when you're riding the Lowrider S on the freeway, it's like a world of difference if you're coming from a Sportster. It just feels very smooth, like you can go over little bumps and it doesn't really, you know, jolt you as much. It does feel stiffer, but that comes also with better handling. I feel a lot more comfortable in the turns. The bike feels very responsive, which is another thing I like about the Lowrider S, is that if you're used to that flickability and nimbleness of a Sportster, you're gonna like love the Lowrider S, because it still feels like a very light bike, and it has even better handling than a Sportster. It's like almost a Sportster on steroids. If you love Sportsters and you just want a little more power, a little better handling, performance, like the Lowrider S is definitely a good upgrade for you, especially if you're in that performance cruiser type of category that you're looking for. If you see in my last video, I took the Lowrider S up to Malibu Canyon, Took it to some twisties, took it on PCH, and it handled those turns very well. I was very surprised. I wasn't used to being on a motorcycle that could handle those turns very well. Like, I was able to do it on my Sportster. Like I said, I put 20,000 miles on that bike. A lot of those miles came from twisties and long road trips, and it handled them. But you just feel a lot more confident on the soft tail frame, and yeah, it just makes it a little more enjoyable. That's basically it for handling. To sum it up, the Lowrider S is very nimble. You could flick it around, you could lane split very well. I was surprised that, you know, I feel no difference lane splitting on the Lowrider as I did on my Sportster. It still feels like a small type of frame, and I can still get in between pretty tight spaces, like almost no difference to my Sportster. And handles well in the turns, a lot more confident, and you know, the riding position and the mid controls really help with that that handling. And that kind of brings me into the next category of comfort. I'm about 5'9" on a good day, and you know, the Lowrider S has mid controls, and I actually prefer that over forward controls, which I had on my previous bike. Forward controls are really fun. It's really comfortable. Your legs are stretched out and you just feel like you're like flying. But I like the mid controls, having the bike directly underneath you, and being able to hug the tank is something that I like a lot. Before, I couldn't hug the Sportster tank with my knees because the tank was so small, but with this bike, the tank is a nice size, and your legs are in a good position to hug the tank when you need to get that extra dip in the turns. And I definitely like that a lot. It just, to me, it feels a lot more comfortable. I know you taller guys probably don't like mid controls, but you know, for you guys who are like my height or shorter, this is like going to be the perfect bike for you. Your feet will touch the ground, you know, and it just feels perfect. I feel like this bike was like made for my type of frame, and it's really comfortable. You know, the suspension adds to that. The larger frame adds to that comfort. I would say that the stock seat is pretty comfortable, but I did swap that out for the sundowner seat, which is, you know, it's not aesthetically as nice, but it's really comfortable, especially if you're riding passengers. And I like to take my fiance on rides, and that's why I got that seat. It's really comfortable for me as well, and I like it a lot. It makes the bike a lot more comfortable. So if you want to increase your comfort on the Lowrider, I suggest getting a new seat with a little back support, because like when you get on that throttle, it does kick you back, and having that little support in the back keeps you planted, and it feels really nice. So let's get into aesthetics. Aesthetically, the bike is very simple, very clean. I got the all blacked out one, and it's a little different look for me, coming from the Sportster 48, where it had like the white tank and there's more contrast throughout the bike. And I got a lot of compliments on the 48. People didn't know like what year the bike was, because it's hard to tell with Harley Davidsons because the style is so timeless. So and they keep their look. They don't modify it so much. So I really do miss that aspect of the 48, that classic look. But I think the Lowrider S also maintains that classic look. If you look at the original Lowrider, the silver one, it looks almost exactly the same as the one they made today. And that's what I really appreciate about Harley Davidson, is that they keep it simple and everything just looks really clean, really nice. I like how all the wires are tucked away. You can't see the suspension in the back. The bike just looks really clean, and the whole blacked out look for me is different, but I'm actually enjoying it a lot, which is surprising to me. Another aesthetic aspect I like about the bike is just like the bronze rims, you know, the bronze graphics. It's just very subtle, and I think they picked the perfect bronze for the wheels on this one compared to the Dyna model. I feel like this bronze is actually a lot better, and I like the little accents throughout the bike. It's just very subtle, very simple, but very effective. Makes the bike look super sexy. I love the way the bike looks already. Like, it's probably gonna look stock for a while. I do not plan to do too many upgrades. I'll probably put a sissy bar on it, add some bags on it, get it ready to do a nice road trip. Alright, so let's get into our last category, which is fun. Is the Lowrider S fun? Of course it is. And I want to compare this to the Sportster real quick. So there's something unique and gratifying about riding a smaller capacity motorcycle. The Sportster was fun because of how raw it felt, how minimalistic it was, and just that feel of being on a motorcycle. It was my first bike, so it's hard to replace that feeling, you know, that connection you have to your first motorcycle. So that kind of factored into what made it a lot of fun. The fact that, you know, it wasn't the best performing bike out there, but it was a bike I had, and you make the best of it. I think that you should take that mentality with any motorcycle you ride, whether it's your first one or your newer motorcycle. Just have fun on it, and don't worry about what other people are riding. Don't worry about that there's maybe there's a better bike out there. You can basically do anything you want on any type of motorcycle. People take these crazy journeys on these smaller capacity motorcycles, and it's just really about how strong you are and how skilled you are as a rider. What makes the Lowrider S a lot of fun is that it has all these performance features, and it's just a very powerful bike, yet nimble at the same time. Just feels like a Sportster with a bunch of superpowers, and that's what makes the Lowrider S fun for me. It's a great commuting bike. It gets me through traffic, but at the same time I can take it out on road trips, and I feel like it's a pretty versatile bike. And I'm looking forward to the future of taking this bike out with my friends, taking it across the country. But until then, thank you for watching these videos. I hope this review kind of helped you out. Like I said, I didn't really go into technicalities of it and all that, but I'm really not into that anyways. I just kind of like riding motorcycles, and this one's a lot of fun to ride. I love all the new features, and I think Harley Davidson is going in the right direction with this motorcycle. I'll give more detailed videos in the future as I ride the bike more and get to know it better. But until then, if you like the content and you like this channel, please subscribe and stay tuned for the next video. Thank you guys for watching. Ride safe. Catch you guys later. Peace.